Okay, dear colleagues, esteemed guests, dear partners, dear visitors, guests from the business community, welcome to the kickoff event of our InnoHPC project. Welcome to FISH. Let's start this event first by welcoming addresses, and I would kindly invite Mr. Gregor Macedoni, the mayor of Novo mesto, who actually was one of the driving forces behind FISH when FISH was established in 2008, and it is always a pleasure to have him as a guest in our events. Gregor, the floor is yours.
Dear organizers, dear guests, dear visitors, welcome to Novo mesto. I am pleased to welcome you to our town at the start of an innovative project which connects computer technology and economy. The use of supercomputers allows for a shorter period needed to develop a product which brings an important and often a decisive competitive advantage in business world. Therefore, I am pleased that our town and the wider region keeps in step with the times thanks to the Faculty of Information Studies here in Novo mesto. One of primary roles of the municipality and the role of all educational institutions must be giving support to economy, and I believe that the supercomputer lab is an important step in this direction. Within this project, our companies will have the possibility to use the supercomputers with expert support and to access the adequate infrastructure. In addition to that, as many as 18 partners from 15 countries will pool knowledge and expertise within this project. I wish you successful work and a pleasant experience of our town.
Hvala lepa. Thank you very much. We are doing this project for the business. Okay, we're doing it for the high education institutions, we're doing it for academia, but out of our desire to make things that we are doing relevant for the business. And this is also why it is a great honor to have the director of the regional chamber of industry, of businesses in this part of Slovenia, which is it's a membership-based organization. It is a voluntary membership, and I think some time ago I heard information they have 80% of regional GDP in their membership or something like that. Anyway, a very good, very successful organization, strong partner, Mr. Tomaž Kordiš. He's also the member of board of FISH, and the floor is yours.
Hvala. Spoštovani župan mestne občine Novo mesto, gospod Gregor Macedoni, spoštovani vodja projekta, profesor dr. Borut Rončević, cenjeni partneri projekta in gosti. Zadovoljen sem, da sem skupaj z vami na tem dogodku ob začetku izvajanja projekta Superračunalniki za učinkovito inoviranje v Podonavju. Naša regija je gospodarsko in inovacijsko razvita, usmerjena v izvoz proizvodov in storitev, a v gospodarstvu se zavedamo, da imamo še veliko priložnosti za nadaljni razvoj. Prepričan sem, da bo vaš mednarodni superračunalniški laboratorij svojo učinkovito rabo superračunalniške infrastrukture omogočil spodbujanje učinkovitega inoviranja in s tem povečal dodano vrednost tudi v naših gospodarskih družbah. Današnji forum s predstavniki akademske sfere, gospodarstveniki in mednarodnimi partnerji je priložnost za vse, da skupaj poiščemo skupne točke novih tehnologij v procesu digitalne transformacije gospodarstva. Spoštovani, vsem skupaj želim, da boste projekt InnoHPC uspešno in učinkovito izvajali in da boste zastavljene cilje presegli. Dear participant, today's forum, which has brought together representatives from academia, business leaders, and international partners is an opportunity for all of us to find common ground for new technologies in the process of digital transformation of economy. I hope all of you present here will carry out the InnoHPC project in a successful and efficient way, as well as exceed the goals you have set. Thank you.
Hvala lepa, thank you very much. Our dean could not be with us today, unfortunately, due to health reasons. All of us who work at FISH know that he's working, even though he's not here. But I would kindly ask our Vice Dean for Research, Professor Tomaž Kordiš, to offer his welcoming address to this public. Mateusz.
Thank you, Borut. Dear participants, Mr. Mayor, dear colleagues, partners, representatives of business community, and other guests. It is a big pleasure for me to address this event that is dedicated to the use of supercomputers in business sector. It is the starting event in the context of InnoHPC project, which joins 18 partners from all around Danube region, and which can be considered as pioneering effort to improve framework conditions for innovation by providing unique institutional and technological infrastructure. This project can be perceived as expression of our ambitions in the field of research and development, as well as a proof of our capabilities. Namely, although Faculty of Information Studies is still a young academic institution, it was founded in 2008. It has very good track record in terms of successful project applications. In the last years, we managed to get several major international projects. And what is of a special importance, we do not see our research work as something that is an end in itself. Our researchers, to be sure, have excellent references in terms of scientific output. For example, our research program, Complex Networks, received the highest assessment among all research programs last year. However, our objective is to produce a knowledge that from which both economy and society in general will have benefits. And this is certainly the case with InnoHPC project. For closing of my address, I would like to congratulate our project team led by my colleague, Professor Borut Rončević, and all other InnoHPC partners for successful project application. I wish you productive kick-off event. Thank you.
Hvala lepa. Now it is time for me to present the main points of this project, which is dedicated not so much for project partners, but for the representatives of the business community. Irene, can I ask you for help? How do I get to my slides? There will also be a small change of program. I would ask Dr. Tomaž Kordiš if after my presentation you could start with your, because Mr. Tomi Iljaš, who is coming from Primorska, from the Arthur company, he just called that there was some problem with the traffic. Would that be okay? Thank you so much. So, I will try to briefly explain how this project came to be and what the purposes of InnoHPC are, meaning why we decide to do it, what we are going to do, for whom, how we are going to do, what we are going to do in the next 2.5 years. Let's start with why. As you are all well aware, very often in life things happen by chance. Sometimes that's what chaos theory teaches us. Sometimes a very small difference in the beginning state leads to a vastly different outcomes. And if fish didn't receive a project back, was it 2012, 2013, project co-financed by ERDF called the Creative Core, the Creative Center Simulations, we wouldn't maybe even start thinking about getting involved in high-performance computing at our institution. As a part of that project, we were able to purchase our, I would call it, mini supercomputer. And that was the first important thing, and that set us on some sort of path-dependent development in which we are aiming to upgrade competencies in this field and which are linked with high-performance computing, but of course especially with the application of the high-performance computing in the framework of the business community, for the businesses, so to say. This is actually not the only such project. Just a few days ago we heard that our colleague Biljana, who just came, received a funding from European Social Fund for a small project dealing with HPC, in which she will be able to work with our students and with other students and so on. So things are happening. It's a slow process, but we hope with a relatively steep learning curve. Secondly, and quite unrelated to this, there was this development called, I would call it, dissection of the program of the Southeast Europe, which many of the partners are familiar with. Some of us have experience with this program, and after a while they decided that Southeast Europe is too big to have a single program, and that maybe a more focused process should be in place. So what used to be program of Southeast Europe is now, I would say, at least 3 programs. We have Adrion, then there is a small Aegean program for which very few countries are eligible. It's a very tiny program for Greece, Macedonia, I don't know, maybe Bulgaria, I'm not sure. And then there is the Danube region program. And we have been following this program actually since the very beginning for a very simple reason, because we had good communication with the professor from University of Maribor, who was a prophet, so to say, for the Danube region, Professor Gričar. He introduced us to this. Our former dean also encouraged us to follow this process, and we actually did it. We followed it. And the EU actually accepted the EU strategy for the Danube region, a nice program with a lot of money, so to say, for different projects. Some of this money is also allocated to boost the innovative potential in the academia, in the business community, of course in relations with each other, and so on. However, when you say, maybe it sounds a bit funny, you say, let's have a more focused approach, let's have Danube region strategy, and then you look at the Danube region, and you see there is really huge gap or huge disparity in the Danube region itself. Because if you look at Danube region has some of the most innovative and wealthiest regions in Europe, like Bayern, like Baden-Württemberg, like a number of Austrian regions. And in its easternmost part, you have some of the poorest regions in Europe. And this leads to a whole range of adverse effects. For example, I have seen so many projects which were building upon the poorly perceived so-called competitive advantages of these regions, developing projects in the area of heritage tourism and so on. Basically everything that translates to low-paid, low-value-added jobs. It didn't work. Some other programs were more ambitious, and these programs were had the adverse effect with the open labor market in the European Union, of which many of these countries are members, just to foster the out-migration of people who gain good competencies. So the region itself, its easternmost part especially, were somewhat caught in some kind of a vicious circle, vicious spiral. And the regional cooperation is relatively limited as well. Actually, there is a lot of cooperation in this region. But for example, for fish, University of Ljubljana or Josef Stefan Institute, they're very happy to cooperate, but they want to cooperate with the institutions in the West. We are much more reluctant to cooperate with our colleagues, with our peers, with our friends who are within driving distance and have competencies. So, when we were designing InnoHPC, we said, let's save Danube region. No, of course, we didn't say that, but we said, let's try to make a project which would at least try to avoid a number of these problems. And HPC seemed like a very nice vehicle for us, because you don't really need a supercomputer on the site to be working on that supercomputer. You can use your skills and work through remote access, and many are doing that already. I was, for example, checking the situation in Moldova, and you actually have Moldovan scientists working with supercomputers, but all of it is in supercomputers in Southeast Europe, operating through remote access, because it's prohibitively expensive infrastructure. So, our focus, high-performance computing, it is an emerging general-purpose technology. Sometimes I joke that we're in a situation where we were with the internet 20 or 25 years ago. When we knew something is there, we would, do some of you still remember IRTS? We knew it was cool, but we had no idea what will develop out of it. And actually, Tomi Iljaš, who will deliver a lecture with a delay, he actually explained this process where HPC is. First, it was used by government and military, because they have money for this sort of infrastructure. Then it was trickled down to big businesses, and now it's in process of trickling down to small and medium-sized enterprises. I'm not saying it will happen like it happened with the internet, that the old grandmothers and great-grandmothers will use high-performance computing, but anyway, its use is becoming more and more widespread, and we are trying to catch this wave in our project. The main objective of our project is to create a transnational HPC lab to co-design knowledge-intensive, innovative products with high, or at least higher, value added, possibly by fostering transnational value chains, meaning to increase regional cooperation, not just within little geographically proximate areas, but I don't know, why wouldn't a company from Romania cooperate with a company in Hungary and with a company in Bayern to do something that can be built into a Renault or Volkswagen car? By whom? We are a consortium of 18 partners from 15 countries. It is a very strong consortium, actually, and through evaluation, this was actually our strongest parts. We have higher education and research institutions from all over the region, including some of the main HPC competence centers. For example, in Slovenia, from University of Ljubljana, which is maybe the oldest, but at least with the strongest tradition in this area in Slovenia, and I'm very happy for them to be members of our consortium. We have High Performance Computing Center from Rijeka, who have the strongest HPC in the region, Bura, in Slovenian Burja, I guess signifying that it's very strong. Plus in Rijeka they actually have problem with this wind half of the time, so it's a very good name. We have national and regional policy makers. I don't know, national from Moldova, from Romania, regional policy makers and implementers from Serbia, from Montenegro, from Sarajevo, and so on. We have businesses also included. We have chambers, business associations. We also have actually a company who is active in the area of high performance computing from Austria as a partner in our consortium. For whom? Who are our target groups? Initially we wanted to decide in advance, to decide during the project who should we target. That would be one of the outcomes. But they said after the first phase, no, we want it to be completely accurate. We want to know what you are going to be doing. During the recent event for lead partners in Budapest, we realized there were very few of us who actually followed this advice, but we are one of them. So we focused on two important industries for Slovenia. One is the automotive and the other is electronic industry. And here we are specifically referring to tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers. We are also focusing on HPC competence centers because we would like this project really to continue after the financing stops. And we're hoping to develop mechanisms which would encourage other HPC competence centers to join the consortium, its other initiatives, spin-off projects, or business projects after we have developed all the services. And we're also targeting policymakers, development agencies, and so on, so that when they design policies in the future, that they would be conducive to this sort of approach. Because just like 15 years ago, everyone was talking about the service economy, service industry, web economy, and so on. Now, reindustrialization of Europe, of Eastern Europe, of Southeast Europe is really on the top of the agenda. And I think this is a very good policy. And I think that what we will do here also has the capacity to support this process. I will just briefly overview what we are going to do. We have a number of work package. First, we will do a very detailed regional HPC benchmark, meaning we'll actually collect data in all countries in the Danube region. First, we'll catalog industrial absorptive capacity, meaning we'll actually go to companies in the automotive and the electronic sector to collect data about their skills, competencies, capacities, needs, and so on, to actually create a database which will help us to do our work later. This is why we call it, we're not allowed to call it research, because research is forbidden in the Interreg, almost forbidden. It's frowned upon, so we said, okay, we'll have to catalog something, and they were happy with it. But this is what we anyway had in mind from the start. Then we'll have to catalog regional HPC capabilities, because we have different institutions with different goals. For example, some of the partners from HPC which we invited, very good institutions, they clearly said, no, our mission is to deal with science. We don't want anything to do with that. Fair enough. We want to know, we want to have a catalog of them, of their capacities, of their goals, of their intentions. So when we link businesses and competence centers, that we know, oh, this competence center, they want to do, they have this sort of skills, but they just want to calculate, I don't know, extremely complex equations to publish in highly esteemed journals, which is very important but not interesting for businesses. So this is where we'll try to connect supply and demand side. Then, in the work package 4, we will have to design InnoHPC lab operational plan and services, basically to explain and what we are planning to offer as a part of this transnational networked laboratory. so that we will have an extremely clear picture of what we can do and what we're actually going to do in the project, and what InnoHPC Lab will do after the project is finished, where it will earn money and so on. We will also design and test InnoHPC capacity building, but not just for the businesses. What we are aware of, and this is also maybe the red line of today's event, that also the trainers have to be trained. So we would also like to teach the people from the higher education, from academia, to understand the needs of the business community, to talk to businesses, to learn their language, to translate, to see that the problems that the businesses have are actually maybe extremely exciting scientific problems, also for them. So this is what we are also trying to achieve. And we are going to design, of course, sustainability and transferability tools, which will allow the project to continue beyond its lifetime of funding, of course. Then we'll, of course, have to develop web platform. What we are going to be specifically careful about, I will just mention one task. This is the user experience design. The first two are relatively straightforward. We would like to develop a platform which is user-friendly, intuitive, and so on. You know, like when you use applications on your smart devices, and some are so good that you open them for the first time and know exactly what you need to do with it. And some are just horrible. We don't want our platform to be horrible. And Work Package 5 will also deal with that. And we will also conduct 3 pilot projects. First, we'll have the capacity building. Once it's fully developed, we'll actually train a number of people from the businesses and a number of people from the higher education institutions, do the detailed evaluations to see whether these programs need to be corrected, adjusted, whether something was omitted, whether materials have to be improved. And we will conduct 2 pilot projects to solve the actual issues, problems within the automotive industry and within the electronic industry to test our tools. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope that you were quiet because it was so interesting, not because you were falling asleep. Do you have any questions about the project at this point? No? Okay. Thank you so much. Now I will ask Dr. Tomaž Kordiš, because Mr. Tomi Iljaš is still not here, if he would be so kind to talk about the perspective from the automotive sector. Ker mora on restartati stream, veš?